The root of all desires is the one desire, to come home, to be at peace. There may be a moment in life when our many activities, the accumulation of money, learning, and objects, leaves us feeling empty, apathetic. This can become a time of great personal transformation, because we may be motivated towards the search for the real. We may find ourselves asking, why am I here? What is life? Who am I? Sooner or later, any intelligent person asks these questions. What we're looking for may be closer than we imagine, and this is our journey today, to investigate being in contrast to becoming, to see ourselves anew, and to engage life with fullness and clarity. Our guest is Klein, a musicologist and medical doctor from Central Europe who spent many years in India studying Advaita Vedanta, or non-dualism, as well as yoga. Since 1960, he has been teaching in Europe and the United States. He's the author of several books, including Be Who You Are, The Ease of Being, Who Am I, and I Am. Join us for the next hour as we speak with Klein and explore the nature and the art of being and living fully and with clarity. My name is Michael Toms. I'll be your host. Welcome to New Dimensions. Welcome. I'd like to go back a few years and to those days when you were thinking about leaving Europe. What drew you to India? Why did you want to go to India?
See how a new society could be built up in a traditional way. I found India still living in a traditional way. But I don't only know something about India, but not specially to find a new way of living. What is important for me, that is the art of living. I saw that they are living only in fraction myself. Fractional living. Showing my surroundings only fractional. My seeing things in the fractional way, my reaction was also fractional, and my action also fractional. I have taken note of it, that I am living fractional.
So fractional as contrasted with whole?
Yes, global living. How come we come to global living, whole living? Free from all representation. Feel yourself whole, global.
So did you find whole living in India?
I cannot say really, but still a way of living which has been much more relaxed, When you are completely relaxed, you come near to what we can say wholeness. In a completely relaxed state, there is simplicity. There's humility. In this humility, in this relaxation, the person doesn't play a not very important role. In a relaxed state, there's love. There's kindness. You live more in the now, free from becoming, anticipating.
Jean, when you say the person doesn't play a very important role, what do you actually mean by that?
Global living is living our totality. This global living with this global living, we have a completely other relation with our surroundings. Our surroundings refer to this globality. We don't react, we act, because most of our actions are reactions. In this completely relaxed state, free from any expectation, representation, we are living knowingly our real nature. Our real nature is the absence of an idea to be an independent entity. It is the most relaxed state, and it brings a love relation with our surroundings.
Jean, the state sounds wonderful, but what if I haven't felt it before? How do you attain the state? What do you do?
You can never go knowingly to this relaxed state. You can only say that you are not. So, the teaching, the observation is that one see that we not live in globality, that we live fractional. We see a thing immediately, we judge, we compare, we evaluate, we interpret. So it goes immediately through the mind. And when it goes through the mind, there's conflict. All what goes through the mind is conflict. So this seeing that we are acting fractional, there's a moment that we find ourselves in this taking note. In taking note, we are out of the process of identification ourselves. And then, in this taking note, being aware of it, we refer one moment to ourselves. This moment is not a moment, it is timeless, that we feel ourselves and our globality. So it is only through taking note to be aware that we are identifying ourselves with an object. That we come one moment aware that we are out of the process. That's the only way. We are taking. We can never go directly to what we are fundamentally. We can only see it, that we are not acting in a global way, that we are acting ourselves in fractional.
I'd like to go further with this acting in a global way, Jean. What does that really mean? I mean, it's kind of a vague idea, acting in a global way.
Generally, we feel ourselves identify with an object. It is a subject which objectifies itself, which identifies itself with its object. Then we living in fraction. Our relationship is from fraction to fraction. But when we are living in our globality, that means that we feel ourselves global, complete. This globality, you can never objectify it. You can never represent it. It is an original feeling of your totality. From this state, looking around you, you see facts. It are the facts which brings you to the understanding of the fact itself. It brings also, when it is need, to action. You act. You act according to the situation. It is a situation which acts through you. There's never a conflict. So, the world is in my globality. But I am not in the world. It is why that I know my surroundings, that I know the world.
Jean, earlier you mentioned that whatever goes through the mind is conflict. And it seems to me that when one stands aside to notice this, that somehow it has to go through the mind. How does one do that?
The mind can never change the mind. The mind is a function. It is a very important tool. But we cannot identify ourselves with a function. If we identify ourselves with a function, we turn in a vicious circle. The big harmonization comes when we see the mind from our wholeness, from our globality. To see a situation from our globality, the situation becomes harmonious. I would say it becomes sacred. All our surroundings find its solution, its beauty through this silent awareness. All is an expression of this silent awareness. All what appears has its home ground, its rest in this silence awareness. We are the silent awareness. We can never objectify it. We can never localize it. It is our totality. There's not a knower of it. Then it would not be the totality. It is the timeless. It is this timeless silence in which the time and space appears. All what appears find its significance, find its reason to be when it refers itself through the silence. All appears in silence and disappears in silence, in the I am.
I'm speaking with John Klein. We're going to continue our conversation and our exploration into the art of living in just a moment. John, you mentioned the silence we come to, and I'm wondering how we maintain the silence and also be active in the world. Are the two compatible?
One must be clear, the silence of which we are speaking doesn't belong to the mind. The mind can from time to time be silent, but the nature of the mind is action, is function. So the mind, silence, refers to action. The silence of which we are speaking is beyond silence in functions. So you will feel first the silence between two thoughts and two actions, two perceptions. You will feel the silence even in the evening before going to sleep. You will find the silence in the morning when the body wakes up. But later, you will also be the silence in action. Silence belongs to the timeless. All what is time and space has its virtuality, its potentiality in silence. So first you must discover your original silence. And I would say this original silence, you can find it even in daily life. There are moments that you are completely free from all anticipation and going back to the past. You are free from all activity. But generally, you take these moments in absence of activity as an absence of activity. But it is in reality your fundamental presence. So the mind must know in a certain way that there is something beyond the mind, that the mind is limited. Then the mind is open to see what is beyond the mind. It means the mind gives up. There is a natural giving up.
What about our desire to want to control our reality?
The controller belongs to the mind. All doing, anticipation belongs to the mind. The mind can never change the mind. A thought can never change a thought. An object can never change an object. It is only the background, silence, who can proceed the change in seeing facts as they are. So what we are fundamentally, we can never find it. We can never project it. We can only project an object. We can only project something which is perceived. But we are fundamentally, this silence awareness can never become an object, can never be perceived. It is our totality. It's perceived itself by its own. It refers to its own. It doesn't need any agent to be known. It knows itself by itself. So all striving, all technique, all becoming, what we are looking fundamentally, that means our fundamental state, non-state, we can only be it. When we project it, we make.
Jean, there's a great deal of emphasis in certain parts of our society and culture on becoming something other than who we are, and perhaps maybe the idea of realizing our full potential is a sort of becoming. What about that?
As long as we take ourselves as an independent entity, we are looking constantly for security. In this looking for security, we're going constantly to the past and projecting the future. We are living in psychological time. But all what we are looking for can be only an object. When we see really that what we are looking for can only be an object, then there is a stop. A stop of, I don't know. In this I don't know, we are taking by our wholeness. In a certain way, we must explore This I don't know. It is space without any representation. It is our total expansion. In this becoming, we can only become what we are fundamentally are. It is the looker, what he is looking for.
John, we live in a society that has a great deal of emphasis on the individual and the power of the individual and the strength of the individual. Emphasis on individuality. How does that reconcile with the notion of releasing this attachment to individuality and one's own identity?
The I, the me, is fabrication. Education, father and mother, society, experience. And we have built up in us a kind of person. But this person is a fabrication of the mind. It is this person which confronts, which faces the surroundings. We know this person. It is an object, nothing else. And this object, this person, is looking constantly for security, for survival. That we must see it. And when we come to a certain age, and we see that we have identify ourselves with an image built up, then there is a stop, I would say. There is taking a note, and also we will feel our reactions to it, that we have taken ourselves for something completely unbelievable, stupid.
John, we'll be right back. I'm speaking with John Klein, the author of Be Who You Are and the Ease of Being and I Am. We'll be back in one. So, John, you wound up saying completely stupid. We've found ourselves in that place.
I said stupid because you see that you have projected something which you are not. Then the question comes, who am I? With this question, you must live with it. Because you can never find an answer. In living it, you don't touch it by the mind, who tries to interpret, to evaluate, to compare, to judge, conclusion. You live simply with a question. In living it with a question, you find yourself in a state of waiting. I would say waiting without waiting of anything. In this waiting, you are completely open. And you will feel that the answer is in this openness. The answer is in waiting. That is the living answer. This living answer has no border, no center. It is your total absence of any representation of an I, of a me. There is the ultimate happiness, where nobody is happy and nothing is happy. There's only happiness. You can never go to this happiness, because that would be memory. You can only go, create the elements which brought you to the threshold. Threshold means here when there's a total giving up of the interference of the mind. Then you are taking by your wholeness.
So John, it seems to me what happens is that we have an experience that of happiness, and then we identify it as happiness in looking back on it, remembering it, and then we go about attempting to recreate it. And what you're saying is that that can't be done, that there is just the moment and the experience of happiness, and it's not a matter of creating it with our minds or with, there's no making it happy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. The moment you go back to it, you make a state of it. In a state, you go in and you go out. It is mind. So you can only go to the end of all your faculty as a mind. The mind gives up a moment. When the mind gives up completely, the mind sees its limits, then it's a completely total stop. In this total stop, you are taking by your.
So I think anyone out there listening can, if one truly recalls a moment of true happiness, there really is no thought of self in that moment. There's just the experience. There's just the beingness. And that, I think, happens to all of us. We all have those moments. But what we tend to do, again, because of the power of the mind, is the mind takes over. It also does that not just with happiness, but the mind worries and creates huge monsters in the closet. And it's really all mind stuff, isn't it? Those things that we create don't really exist.
Our mind must become still, open. And the mind becomes open, still. Then it is a very important, useful tool. In our silence, in our present silence, we are surrounded by facts. We don't interfere. Situations bring its own solution, and we act according to the solution. There's no interference of an I. There's total surrender. Surrender means here the I gives up all interference. What remains is only alertness, being completely aware of the situation. Because every situation refers to this globality, to this totality. Our relationship with our surroundings changes completely. Silent awareness can only see silent awareness, never project any pattern. So meeting our surroundings is meeting ourselves. Our neighbor is ourselves. That is the support in the relation. Then the personality, the character, the individuality comes up. You have to do with a woman, you have to do with a child, you have to do with a man, an old man, a young man. But the fundamental is what we are in common to us all. That means this silence. So the relation with our surroundings is not based on wanting, becoming, asking. I would say then the relation becomes a kind of offering, kind of giving.
What about relationship itself, the relationship of one person to another? Is this something that can allow this silence to be, or is it in conflict with the silence?
There is first silence. The essence of every living being is silence. The silence expresses itself in different characters, personalities, way of thinking, way of behavior. But the underlying reality is the silence. You will see the speech which refers only to words. A word which refers only to a word. An object which refers only to an object has no life in it. When an object refers to its home ground, to its silence, then it is sacred. It is life. It is music. A sound which not refers to itself, to silence, is not music. A word which not refers to silence is untruth. Silence is truth. And all our manifestation, all our expressions, all our sayings have its support in silence and its significance in silence. So the relation between two people becomes beautiful. When there is listening, we both are in oneness. You see itself when you go to the concert. Hundreds and hundreds of people are listening. In this listening, there's no projection. There's only listening. Or there is only looking. when there is so listening to another person, there are moments that there is understanding. This understanding is on the level of the mind. But this understanding on the level of the mind is not the complete understanding. The complete understanding is when the understanding is completely dissolved in the being understanding. And this dissolving of the understanding is the dissolving in silence. And then there are moments there's nothing to speak, there's only being understanding. You know these moments when there's nothing to speak. You have it also when there's love. Silence is love. There's not the you, it's not another. It are the most beautiful moments when there is the being understanding.
Jean, what do you see the role of art being in the spiritual path?
Every object points where the ultimate subject. An object appears in silence and disappears in silence. But generally, we function not in this way. We associate immediately an object to another object. We are living in the thinking process, in the thinking from object to object. But an art object is art when it comes directly, when it is directly projected from love, from beauty. An object which is created out of beauty is produced in a certain way that in a certain moment it loses its objectivity. It loses its concreteness. It brings directly the looker, the hearer, to oneness, to being looking, to being seeing. The beauty in art points directly, brings us directly to our own beauty. It is this living beauty, living in silence. But as we said already, it is not the occasional silence of the mind. It is this silence which you have been, which has been before you have been born. It is the silence which has been before you was created by two persons, father and mother. In this silence, nobody lives, nobody dies. The question appears spontaneously, who is living? Who is dying? So art points directly to the eternal, but we are fundamentally. We discover very clearly that the hearer is what is looking for, the looker what he is looking for. One finds oneself in looking, one finds oneself in hearing. All what is heard refers, brings us back to the hearing. All what is look at it brings us back to the looking. That is silence, presence, the I am.
John, earlier you were speaking of those profound questions that come up. Who am I? Why am I here? Another archetypal question is, what is the meaning of life? Is there meaning? Is that a question worth asking or pursuing?
Life is, it is purposeless. It is the beauty. It is the perfection. It is purposeless. But one must really make the distinction between life and its expressions. Its expressions in space and time. Like it is in our society. Our economically, political society. Our political society can never change itself as long as it remains on the level of the social. We can never find a new society when we remain on the level of the social. Because the social level is an expression of love, of beauty. It is a moral problem and not a social, political problem. By moral, I don't understand morality in the general sense. For me, moral is what comes out spontaneously out of this silence. It is only a new society can only change when it is conceived, when it is built up from this free from the I, free from the me.
So we have about 2 minutes left, Jean. Is there any final thought that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
You would say, if I have something to say more, I would say, take it for granted that what you are fundamentally, you can never represent it. You will find, when you take this for granted, you will find yourself in moments of a completely absence of yourself. You're simply here. Live knowingly. Be completely attuned to these moments, and you are free from the person. The person is a mind fabrication, but you are not the mind. You are the ultimate self.
Jean, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I've been speaking with Jean Klein.